What does it take to change your normal? Why is it so important to deliberately take risks that can positively impact your future? 2 years ago, I started high school along with a lot of other moody 9th graders. But unlike my previous classmates, I was in an unfamiliar environment. I was a public school student, and now I'm a private school student. I could walk to my middle school, and now I commute at least 45 minutes to and from school every day. I am Mexican in a school with a majority of wealthy white people. My first few months at my new school were a huge culture shock, but I learned so much about my identity that I wouldn't have otherwise realized. The opportunity for this kind of growth came when I was in the 5th grade, and from that point on, I took control of my narrative and utilized the resources that will help guide me to be the first in my family to go to college. I want to show you all how taking risks can help expand your perspective in amazing ways you can't even imagine. And just as importantly, how embracing the uncomfortable can redefine your idea of what's normal and create a space where we can all come together. My family, like many others in my low-income neighborhood, has struggled and continues to struggle against poverty, crime, and addiction. I have a 30-year-old African-American brother, a 26-year-old Native American sister, and a 45-year-old Mexican mother, and I'm the youngest at 16. My sister practically raised me, not only because she's so much older, but also because my father's in Mexico and we aren't in contact, and my mother was in prison when I was younger. And I won't lie, my mom these past few years has really stepped up, and I love her so much. When I was 2, my grandma took me and my siblings in, and while my grandmother worked, my sister attended every single parent-teacher conference, talent show, school event. She even drove me to my first internship. She was and is there for everything. And despite these unusual family dynamics, I would not change a single thing about how I was raised. In a small house, in a small town just south of Seattle, in a low-income neighborhood where I attended a majority Latino public school. In the beginning of 5th grade, after receiving a recruitment letter in the mail, I applied to a rigorous academic program that guides marginalized students on their path to higher education. To my family's surprise, I jumped at the opportunity. It was easy to be excited about loads of extra homework because I wanted to be the first to go to college in a family where no one had ever graduated high school. It was an opportunity to overcome the systemic barriers my community continues to face. I was 10, and the thing I worried about the most was not which doll I wanted or which movie I wanted to watch when I got home. Here I was, a wide-eyed 10-year-old little girl attempting to save her 30-year-old self before she even knew her multiplication tables. I had not yet been offered drugs, alcohol, or anything of the sort, yet I was absolutely terrified of becoming an addict. In my mind, all children were fearing these things and having to pick up the pieces from their family struggles. This was my normal. I was so accustomed to my version of Seattle. The drug deals, the be home before dark, the shootings at the gas station right by my house, the constant sirens. This is the part of Seattle that is hidden behind the fancy tech stores, the museums, the picnics at the park. We all know about the tech companies, coffee chains, huge realtors, and every big corporation that has continued to push people like me south. South is my home. What I failed to realize is that South Seattle isn't everybody's home. To me, the North was nothing more than a tourist hotspot, and the upper class didn't exist to me unless we were talking about celebrities. I didn't realize I was in a poor community because it was all I was exposed to. I grew up on food stamps, food banks, and free lunch. I was 10 steps in on the path to failure before I even stepped foot on the starting line. I didn't know that though. I thought my experience was like everybody else's. It didn't help that my previous school was 83% people of color and 79% were low income. In other words, just like me. I valued the diverse cultures, languages, and religions. School was a familiar normal, and because my friends and I led similarly tough lives, it was easy to make jokes about things we all understood. like absent fathers or relatives doing drugs. There was no awkward silence, no pity, no shame. But at my new school, those jokes don't get told. And the lack of trauma-related humor doesn't make it a bad environment. It's just that we're not all coming from the same place. I remember when I first realized how different my new private school would be in the beginning of 9th grade. The teachers had us playing an icebreaker in class, 2 truths and a lie. My 2 truths were 1, my favorite color is blue. And 2, I once stole a dead jellyfish off the beach when I was younger. Their truths were traveling to Paris each summer, swimming with sharks, visiting Australia, Britain, and all of these other places I've only ever dreamed of going to. Unlike my weekend trips to ocean shores 4 hours away from home, these students were going out of the country for weeks at a time. This may be their normal, but to me their lives seem like something out of a glossy magazine. Not only the students' lives, but the campus itself seems like something out of Architectural Digest. Everything around me is so new, like nothing I have experienced before. In response to COVID-19, every single classroom got 180-degree motion-sensor cameras for online calls, weekly COVID tests, COVID tracing apps, high-quality speakers, and what seemed like no end to the expensive technological resources. There's even real salmon in the lunches, unlike the plasticky fish sticks they gave out at my old school once every few months. It is like I'm in a foreign country, sort of like the trips I constantly heard my classmates were going on. Everyone speaks differently, and there are different customs and traditions. I'm trying new foods, meeting new people, and have access to new opportunities like private metro buses, internship resources, mental health counseling, and even full-time athletic trainers. None of this makes up for missing my old school and how comfortable I felt there, but I'm still proud of my decision to take a risk and go to a school where my already defined views of the world would be challenged. It was opportunities that not a lot of my previous classmates even knew existed. And if they did know about private schools, they think it's only for rich people. And that's because the offer of a safe, well-rounded education comes with a $40,000 a year price tag. Luckily, I received financial aid, because if I hadn't, I wouldn't be at a school where learning was the priority and I'm constantly growing. But everyone deserves that opportunity, regardless of zip code and income. My first few months at my new school were a huge culture shock, despite already knowing these people prior from online classes. I remember talking to a friend about his weekend plans, and he mentioned having what he called the cleaners coming to his house. I was taken aback because my amazing 71-year-old grandma works in cleaning, and most of her clients, if not all, are wealthy white people. And even though his family wasn't one of her clients, I shrank because of our vastly different economic backgrounds. It made me feel like I didn't deserve to be at the school. And even though he was as surprised to hear that I didn't have a maid as I was when I heard that he had one, this may be his normal, but to me, it was just a completely different experience. It's not out of the ordinary for students at my school to have what I know to be a multi-million or billion-dollar company, or have a foundation named after them. I find myself now in a community that includes the top 1%. When I was first accepted into my new school, my favorite middle school teacher made me promise not to change who I was, even once I was surrounded by people who didn't know me or anybody like me. Staying true to that promise has helped me keep my identity and keep me stay true to myself. It would be easy to pretend I have been swimming with sharks, or that I have money, or that I'm not the child of a troubled home. I so wanted to blend in like I did at my old school. But I didn't, and I still don't have shared experiences with them. This summer, my family, along with the neighbors who have helped support me and raise me, are being kicked out of our trailer park. This is happening all over the world as neighborhoods are gentrifying and getting rid of some of the only affordable places to live. Our trailer parks are being torn down to make way for the new, more fortunate than us families to come in. My neighborhood is having to adjust from $900 a month to over $2,000 a month of rent. And to top it off, the public high school in my area has plans to be completely remodeled. It'll be beautiful, but the families who have worked so hard to be here and maintain their place here won't be able to enjoy it. It'll be for the new, privileged families coming in. I am Anjelica, Valenzuela, and I am finding myself in this sometimes jarring yet beautiful in-between. I fit in at my old school. The schoolwork was easy, and so was my social life. I'm so grateful for that culture, the teachers, and those friends. But at my new school, I have access to new opportunities that I want to make the most of. As part of a small minority now, I've had to learn that my normal isn't the normal of most of my peers. But that is okay because my community is rich in value to anyone who takes the time to go beyond what they assume and listen to our stories. Rich in a way that only comes from diversity and struggle. It took both taking risks and expanding my perspective to appreciate what I have and who I can become. So let me ask you, what will you do to embrace the uncomfortable? And who will you seek out to redefine your normal? Thank you.